and welcome to the Teaching Corner. Today I want to give you 10 things that I wish I had known as a new teacher. So this video is really for new teachers. You've just come out of college, you've just finished your student teaching. Congratulations, so very proud of you. You've got your very first job, you're about to walk in, and here are 10 things that I wish I had known. So number one, you have homework over the summer. The very first thing you need to do is to go to whoever your EC director is or your program director and ask them for your IEP dates and your reeval dates. The honest to goodness truth is, whatever situation you've walked into, you're taking over for somebody else and they've left that position, and it may or may not have been on the best terms, and they may or may not have had all their paperwork up to date. But IEPs and reevals are legal documents that you are responsible for, and if these students are on your caseload, it is now your responsibility to make sure that those IEPs and reevals are up to date. And it has happened to me before when I've started a new job that literally the very first week of school I had an IEP due, and I hadn't even met the student yet, but it was still my responsibility to make sure that that IEP happened and that those goals were up to date. Which means the second thing that you need to do this summer is to find out what your caseload is, and to find out who's in charge of making those IEP and reeval meetings happen. So some places, like I worked at a high school one time that was large enough, they actually had a case manager, and the case manager got all the people together and made sure that the date worked for everybody and that everybody could meet, and all I had to do was write the IEP and show up for the meeting. But I've also been in counties where my caseload was 100% my responsibility, and it was my responsibility to get with the classroom teacher, the LEA, all the other therapists, and the parent, and get that meeting set up. So make sure you know who is in charge of that. And the third thing that you want to do this summer is you want to read over your IEPs. And you want to do this for two reasons. First of all, day one, you are supposed to be the expert on the students that are on your caseload. So you need to know what their IEP goals are. If you're a self-contained teacher, it's not quite as big of a deal because you're the one implementing all the goals and with the students all day. But if you're pull out and resource and you're having to work with a classroom teacher, you need to know what their IEP says. Or if you're an itinerant teacher like I have been for many years in the past, you need to know what those goals are so that they can be implemented, but also what the students' accommodations are, and find out whose job it is to let the teachers know about those accommodations. For me in the past, being a hearing impaired itinerant teacher, that was my job. I had to make sure that the teachers knew the list of who had preferential seating, who had extended time, because oftentimes day one, teachers will give assessments, and you want to make sure that those students are getting the accommodations they need so that those assessments are valid information for the teacher to have. And the second reason too is, like I said before, you may walk into a situation where week one, day one, you have to write an IEP, and a lot of colleges and universities don't actually teach you how to do that. I specifically asked a professor of mine back when I was in school if they would do that, and he said no, because every state, every county does it differently. You're blessed if you're now in a county. When I first started teaching, all of this was done by hand, and we had to handwrite everything. Now most of this is done on the computer. So the wonderful thing is you can sit at home and pull this up on your computer and look at it and go over their goals. But that also, if you've never written an IEP before and you have to write one before your county trains you, you can see how those IEP goals are written in the area that you live and work, and because it's different in different places how they want it done. So the fourth thing that I would suggest is get a calendar and get the school calendar and write down all of the county dates. Most of the time, these things are not going to change, but it will impact like when you can see certain students, especially if you're going to multiple schools. You need to know when the schools are going to be closed, when you're not going to be able to see certain students, when there's a big thing happening. But then each school has its own unique culture. So there are going to be things that that school just does, and the teachers that are there know about it, but it's not written down anywhere. And so that was one of the things as a new teacher, and I've talked to many new teachers, they feel like that first year you're just constantly hit in the face with, oh, we have this rally, and oh, we have this fundraiser, and oh, we have this party. We have all of these different things that are going to take away from your instructional time. So if you can find out what that is, because that will affect when you can see your students, it'll really help you out. The other thing you want to think about is if you have students, if you're pulling students, and you have students that you pull multiple times a week versus students you pull once a week, you want to make sure your once a week students are not on Mondays and Fridays, because Mondays and Fridays will typically be the days that you're going to lose for holidays. So for instance, the week of Martin Luther King Jr. holiday, you're going to lose that Monday of instruction. So if you have a kid that you see Monday, Wednesday, Friday, it's not as big of a deal because they'll still get seen twice. But if you see a student only one time a week and you've scheduled them for Monday, every single time you're out for a holiday, you're going to miss that student. Another thing that I would suggest that you do for number 7 is to find a mentor teacher. If the school district that you're going to doesn't provide one, or if you're in a private school setting and they don't necessarily provide one, find one. Find somebody who's been there for a while, who can help you navigate the culture of that school, who knows what's going on. They can help you with the special events of the school calendar. They can also help you with planning. If you're a classroom teacher, find somebody maybe on your same grade level. If you're the only resource teacher at the school, unfortunately you can't do that, but you can hopefully find some mentor teacher within the school or within the county that can help you out, because they're going to be a wealth of knowledge. All of the little things that people aren't going to think to tell you, that person hopefully will be nice enough to tell you exactly what it is that you're supposed to be doing, tell you about teacher duties, and all of the little things that you're expected to sort of know that you may not know coming in as a new teacher. And the other thing I would recommend is to find all the new teachers. And a lot of times this is easy because at orientation, sometimes they'll have all the new teachers come in a day or two before the rest of people, or stay for a special meeting just for new teachers. But find those teachers that are in the same boat as you, the same situation as you, and you guys are going to be able to commiserate together. You're going to be able to bounce ideas off each other, figure out how they're organizing this or how they're setting up that, and it just really helps. And I'll be honest, some of the people that I taught with my very first year of teaching, even though I've moved twice and I live in a different state now, are still some of my really good friends, because we all had this collective experience that we went through together. Another thing that you need to realize is you are going to be exhausted, and your friends from college are not going to understand why all of a sudden you can't pull these all-nighters and do things that you used to be able to do before. There's a saying that there's no tired like new teacher tired. Especially if you're up in front of a classroom, just be aware, wear really good comfortable shoes, something that's got a lot of good support, because you're going to be on your feet a lot. You're going to be doing a lot of walking, and most schools, the floors are horrible. They're really hard, and so your legs just ache and ache after like the first 2 weeks. You get used to it eventually, but right at first you're going to be so very tired. So just be aware of that and make room for that. If you're used to going to bed, say at midnight, you might back it up to 10 o'clock or something. You're gonna need some sleep. You're gonna need some rest. And your friends might not understand, but they're also not getting up at 6 o'clock to be at work by 7:30. So just know that you're gonna be really tired. And finally, number 10, the thing that I would say is definitely know that any new job is stressful, and teaching is extremely stressful, because you're having to get to know the kids, you're having to learn the school culture, you're having to do duties, you're having to write reports. There's all of these things that you're just expected to know and to do and be proficient at immediately, and it's overwhelming and it's tiring. So I really encourage you to find ways to self-soothe that are healthy. You know, don't link it to food or alcohol or recreational drugs or something like that. Just be really mindful of taking care of yourself, taking your vitamins, drinking your water, Go for a walk, pick up a hobby, read a book. I had a friend who was a teacher and she loved kickboxing. She said that after work she would go and take her kickboxing class and it just relieved all of her stress, and then she was able to go home and deal with all of her home stuff and feel, you know, calm and cool and collected and like a normal person. So figure out what works for you, but be cognizant of this is gonna be stressful and I'm gonna need some way to self-soothe and to relax and to alleviate some of that stress. So think of ways that you can do that positively. But I do want to give you hope that even though you're going to feel like your wheels are falling off and you're just going and going and going and you're exhausted, that it does get better. This past year, if you were a new teacher during this past year, I apologize. This is not what teaching is normally like. But for all of you new teachers, hopefully this year is going to be better. And just know that in any job I've ever started, I've always felt like that, all of these things hitting me in the face, trying to figure things out, but it gets better, especially by Christmas. I always felt like after we came back for Christmas break, I kind of was able to go, oh, okay, I've got this. I understand. I got a little rhythm. I understand how to do this, and it wasn't so bad. So just know that it does get better, and I hope that was helpful. If it was, please like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you later. Bye.